All right, let's get started here. Will and Testament. The Will and Testament. You know, I should probably tell a quick story for everybody to understand that everything I'm going to talk about today basically hinges around this simple story. Here's what's happening, what has happened to all of us, and has happened to everybody, ultimately since 1933. Since the New Deal, since the ultimate bankruptcy of the United States, where the international bankers, the Bank of England, took control, or basically took ownership of the United States. So mom, your mom, your mom, your mom, all of your moms, everybody. Mom goes into a hospital, a public hospital, anywhere in America. Actually, mom goes into a hospital anywhere in the world where there's a central banking system. Mom goes into a hospital. The hospital is considered a public hospital, but it's also considered a charitable hospital. And a charitable hospital is also considered to be a foundling hospital. That's F-O-U-N-D-L-I-N-G. A foundling hospital. What's a foundling hospital? A foundling hospital is where children are abandoned by their maiden mothers to the state. They're given away to the state because the mother is considered a pauper and needs help by somebody. So every hospital is a charitable hospital in the world that has a central banking organization running it. Every charitable hospital is a foundling hospital where every child born within it is considered a foundling and abandoned to the state. What does that mean? That means that the child, here's the way it works. Mom goes into the hospital, abandons her child, the state picks up the child, legally adopts it through a legal process, not a lawful process, but a legal process. The state becomes the guardian over the child's estate and administrates over the child's estate until he's 18. At 18, the child should be able to take over administrative authority, but cannot, because the child never takes responsibility for his estate, for his property, for his life, and because of that, the state continues to administrate for the man or woman at this point for the rest of the man or woman's life. That's what's happening. Also, the administrative authority, the entire system is probate, but the administrative authority is what we think is the court system in America, the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice, again, is not a system of law, it's a system of commerce. And the Department of Justice is overseeing the administrative, the authority, has the authority to administrate over every child born and has since 1933, the New Deal. So again, every man, woman, and child born in America since 1933 is considered to be an orphan. That orphan lives in a house called Congress. That house has house rules. How many people have children okay, yeah. And of course, I mean, depending on how old they are, yeah. In your house, again, my dad said it, your dad said it, everybody's father said it at some point, maybe even some mothers. But what did they say? You live under my roof, you go by my rules. Well, in the House of Congress, where all of the abandoned children live, they have their own rules. What are those rules called? Public policy. So every man, woman, and child in America, they're all orphans living in an orphanage known as the United States, and the house of that orphanage is called the House of Congress, and Congress oversees or administrates the property of all of these orphans as well. And that's what we have going on here in America. By the way, for those of you patriots out there that think that you're voting for your jailers or for your administrators, you are not. You're considered to be a minority within the House. And remember, minors do not have legal what? They don't have legal rights because they're underage. So since we're all considered minors, none of what we do, none of our actions are considered legal. Therefore, none of our actions have we have no input on what happens in the house. And remember also that it doesn't matter whether it's the left or the right, they're both the same management team. Inside the House, the Republicans and Democrats, including the Ron Pauls of the world, they're the same management team. That's the way it works. So, I want to tell that story because everything else from this point forward will make more sense. And if I start to get all jacked up, Ron, just go ahead and turn off this this camera. And we're going to talk about the will and the testament. I want everybody to understand what the will and the testament is, because unless you understand this, you don't have there's no possible way to understand that they're in control of your life. What is the will? Everybody thinks they know what the will is. Everybody thinks the will is an intention to do something, or a desire. I wish, I will that to occur. I want that to happen. It is my will for that to happen. I told a story about, I had some friends over the other day, 3 guys, 3 adults, sitting here in my house, and I do mean house, in my house, and we had about, I don't know, 14, 16 inches of snow out there. My driveway had not been plowed, shoveled, or anything else. So let's just get to the idea of the will. I'm looking down my driveway right now. There's 14 inches of snow on it. How many people actually believe it is my will or desire to have that plowed or shoveled? Well, who wouldn't? Everybody wants their driveway plowed or shoveled or cleaned off, correct? So is it my will that it is? No. My will has not been expressed. The driveway is not clean, therefore it is not my will at all. Let me explain that. Here is me. Let's just say it's me. The will is, and all attorneys will agree with this, the will is land. That's what the will is. It's land. But is it earthly land, ultimately? No, it's not. The will, this is a tough concept for most people, but the will is the land of your soul. It's the land of your soul. So, if it's the land of your soul, is it not your body, your physical body? The land, which is called the will, it is the land, this here is my will. This physical body that houses my soul, it's the house of the holy. You know what? There's movies out there. It's the chariot of the gods. This is what carries my divinity. This is the land of my soul. It's my physical body. So let's get back to the idea of my driveway. The driveway has 14 to 16 inches of snow on it. Is it my will to have it cleaned off? No. Why? In order for it to be my will to have that driveway cleaned off, I would have to physically pick up a shovel. I'd have to physically pick up a shovel, go down there and shovel it off. My land would have to actually do something to be an expression of this land. I would have to physically do something. My will would only be expressed, that driveway would only be cleaned off if it truly were my will. My will is a physical action. My body has to do something in order for it to be evidence of my will. Again, a clean driveway is evidence that it were my will to have a clean driveway. I have to physically pick up a shovel with the land of my soul, go down there and shovel it off. Then, and only then, would that driveway be an expression of my will. How about this? If I get a summons to their private Department of Justice court system, and I show up, I don't want to show up, but I do. I don't want to participate, but I do. That my physical land of my soul which is my will, my land, shows up in their private courtroom. Is it my will to be there? Absolutely. I mean, there's no possible way that I can say I don't want to be there when it is my will, the land of my soul, shows up there. How about if I sign a document that they force me to sign? Is it my will to sign the document? Well, of course it is. I can bitch and moan all I want, but is it my will to sign it? Of course it is. I got a pen in hand. That is in the hand. It's in the land. It's upon the land. And when I sign something with my signature, is that not an expression of my will? Absolutely. Can I deny it? No. So is it about a desire or a wish? No. It is evidence. Whatever this has done is evidence of my will. Okay. What is that evidence called? It's called testament. What do I mean by that? The clean driveway is testament or evidence of my will. I picked up with the land of my soul a shovel, went down there and cleaned off the driveway. So the clean driveway is evidence of my will. We're going to call it product. What's a better word? How about fruit?
Produce.
Yeah, it's the produce. It's the product, the produce. It's the fruit of the soil of the land. It's whatever the land produces. So the land picks up, again, the land being of my soul, it is my will. I pick up a shovel, I clean off the driveway. A clean driveway is the fruit, evidence of an act of my will. That fruit is also the fruit of my labor. Whether it's intellectual or physical. That is called property. The property is the testament of my will. It's the product. It is what I create. I created a clean driveway. That's the product of my will. It is also evidence of the actions of my will. So again, the will, the land of your soul, and the testament, the property or the result of that will is what? It equals an estate. It equals the estate. The will and testament is your estate. Now here's what's really tough for most Christians or religious folks to gather. This information is so difficult. Why? Because everybody knows that God says that you're supposed to be the steward of what? Of your estate. He says his estate. But are you not directly a product of God, ultimately? It doesn't matter what God is. I mean, I can't explain where anybody came from, so I'm just saying we came from somewhere. So I'm not going to argue the point. We're supposed to be the stewards of our own estates. We're supposed to be 100% responsible for our land and our property. We're supposed to be the stewards of our will and testament. So what happened? Hey, I'm curious. How come everybody out there seems to think that somebody else should insure them or indemnify them for their actions of their will? I mean, don't you think that maybe we're bowing down to two gods, maybe, or two masters? How can you possibly believe that there's a God in heaven or whatever, and you're the steward of your estate, when you turn around and you expect something from the state, District of Columbia, the House, whatever you want to call it? How can you consider yourself the steward of your life if somebody else is, what, managing it? How about insuring it? Anybody here got automobile insurance? Really? So who's responsible for your driving? You or somebody else? If it's somebody else, you're not the steward of your life. If it's somebody else. Hey, how about does anybody have insurance, life insurance? Or how about health insurance? Obamacare. Anybody fighting for that? How about Social Security? How about letting somebody steal your property throughout your life, but then blaming them that there's nothing there at the end, and thinking that maybe some other 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds should be working to make sure they take care of your estate? Is there anybody here that actually is responsible for their life? It's just a question. I can't see it. I mean, unless you're 100%, and I mean 100%. But what is the United States doing right now? Making it impossible for anybody to be responsible. In fact, don't they tell you everywhere? I mean, you're irresponsible if you don't have insurance. They're telling you that you're irresponsible if you don't have insurance. I mean, how are you supposed to take care of your brothers and sisters? How can you possibly think that you're responsible if you don't have insurance? Well, let's just lay it out there. Insurance is irresponsible. If you have somebody else indemnifying your will and testament, I say that's the ultimate in irresponsibility. And you know what? You're serving another master anyway. I would say that the master at that point, your master, is the state. Not mine. I'm out. But your master is the estate. Is the estate known as the United States. The House known as Congress. That's your master. So I hope everybody got the idea that the will is the land of your soul, and an act, whether it's through a pen, your hand, or a shovel. Anything that the land does is an act. It's evidence of the will. And the evidence, the outcome, going to work as a machine tool guy, a mechanic, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do intellectually or physically, the product of that will, of that labor, is yours to keep. Yours, nobody else's. So why is it that we for some reason have to give up some huge percentage of it to some other master? Yeah, that's my question. Because we have allowed somebody else to take care of us. Again, remember what I said earlier. We are all orphans in their house. They did something in 1933 through FDR's New Deal to steal our will and testament from us. Okay, so let's see, where should I go next? Okay, yeah, you in the back?
Will you not give the explanation and maybe the analogy of liability now? On the right?
Yeah. Okay, well, liability, I kind of tapped into that just a little bit. Liability is, okay, land. A farmer. A farmer, again, are we not the landholder here? It's our will, it's our land. But let's just think of a farmer out there somewhere who has, I don't know, 40 acres, 400 acres, it doesn't matter. But he has a bunch of nice tractors. And a bunch of his buddies come over and start riding around on his tractors, playing chicken. The landowner screams at his buddies, "Get the hell off there, somebody's going to get hurt." And one of his idiot buddies says, "Hey, who are you to tell me, what to do?" Well, here's the thing. The landowner, the property owner, can tell these guys anything he wants, including "get the hell off my property." Why? Because all liability, 100% of the liability lies with this man, the farmer. Why? Because he's the owner. All liability lies with the owner. The owner. So here's this man out there screaming at his buddies to get off the tractors because why? Somebody could get hurt. If somebody got hurt, who's liable for their injuries? Well, they're going to scream he is. Why? Because they're not going to take responsibility for their actions. They're going to say, "Hey, I was on your land." Liability is taking responsibility for your land and taking if you take responsibility for your land, you're also taking responsibility for the product of that land or the testament known as property. If you're driving down a road behind the wheel of a car, the man is behind the wheel. The car is the property of the man. If the property runs over a mailbox across the street, who is responsible for getting the mailbox fixed? Well, the property is the product or testament. The car is a result of this, the labor of this land. So the car is the property. The property does damage to the mailbox. The owner of the property is liable for the damage. So again, the property did the damage. The owner pays the damages. Why? Because he is 100% liable for his actions. The land, just like the farmer. Again, here's another part of liability. If you're 100% liable, who has the rights? 100% liability. If you're the only one with responsibility, the only one with liability, who has the rights? The only one with rights is the liable man or woman. With liability comes responsibility, but with liability comes the voice or the rights. Without responsibility, without liability, do you have any rights? No. In fact, if you insure the land, you have given up the rights. Why? Because you've given up the responsibility. If you insure it, you're letting somebody else indemnify those actions, so who has to pay in case something happens? The collective. All your brothers and sisters has to pay for your negligence. Why? Because you've let somebody else indemnify your land or your property, your testament. Liability is the most important thing we got going here. Thank you, Dean Clifford, by the way. But liability is, with full liability, with full responsibility comes the voice. Without the voice, without liability, you have no rights. What do you get? In fact, when you insure yourself through Allstate or American Family, when you insure yourself, what happens? You're letting somebody else be responsible. But those that are responsible then have what? The rights to tell you what to do. You lose your rights the moment you give up liability. In fact, you lose all rights the moment you give up liability. When you want somebody else to do something for you, they have the voice. Did you have a question? That's it? Uh-oh, where was I? Okay. I hope everybody has this idea, because if you can't understand that the will... Attorneys, isn't it amazing? I'm going to close with just this on this segment. Isn't it funny that you don't ever hear the word testament anymore? Why don't you hear the word testament anymore? Because in 1933, they took all the property away from the masses to do what? Basically insure the international banks of their, what? Debt. 14th Amendment corporate citizen status. You only hear the word will. Why? Because there is no testament. All property rests in the state. Look, ask the Senate where all property rests. So you go to work every day and you produce things, fruit of your labor, and who gets to keep it? The state gets to keep it. You'll never hear the word testament come out of any attorney's mouth, because there isn't any property for you to... there are no heirs anymore, because all of the people live in under one roof, the house. So all property rests in the state, which is also the House of Congress. There is you can't inherit anything. Nothing leaves the house. 1935. I'm trying to think of. There's a Senate report out there that talks about all property resting in the states. These are not my words. Anyway, so I hope everybody has this. Will and testament is the most important thing. Period. It is the most important thing. If you don't have the idea that your will is your body, and the testament is the fruit, the outcome, the produce, the property of this body, nothing else will make sense. Everything stems upon this. All right.